Well, hi everybody. It's Joe Chaffee here on this Monday night, and I'm cold because it's 59 degrees here in the studio. Good God, they didn't warm it up yet. I told them to turn the heat on, and I will bet that we will be hovering in the kitchen more in the house on Thanksgiving Day, being that is likely to be the warmest room in the house, either that or in a room when there's a lot of people and a lot of body heat being given off, because we do have this cold air coming in, and weather models actually got even colder today, believe it or not. This is a real solid shot of cold air into the east. But I did happen to notice Anthony Orr pointing out this morning that there's been a logical question, especially here in the Northeast after the snowstorm from, definitely call it a snowstorm from last Thursday. And of course, now we're looking at potentially the coldest Thanksgiving since the one in November 1930, depending on what records you look at. I was looking at New York City's in particular. Scott Briller sent me the list today. So 1930 looked like it was the coldest one, and we are going to potentially get close to that. This will certainly be the coldest since 2002, and then you can pick a few scattered dates along the way. Thanksgiving, of course, being one of those movable holidays, so they don't always match up with the calendar. This Thanksgiving is coming the earliest that it could be, which is the 22nd. And Anthony Orr points out that the logical question being, this is seeing all this now, what does that mean for the winter? And in fact, data shows 1930 to 34 had very mild winters in the United States, and then that changed in 1935 and 1936. But 1930 specifically, if that's the target year that we're looking at, in order for this to be, for New York City anyway, to be the coldest Thanksgiving, well, that in 30, it didn't translate into a colder than average winter. I don't know what the snow totals were for that winter, but at least from the standpoint of temperature. That being said, we do have a bit of a different pattern this time around, I think, because of the fact that we have this very blocky atmosphere, the nature of the upper atmosphere that's going to develop next week and beyond. We also have this unprecedented snow cover in North America, which is at a record pace, and that is, by the way, out ahead of last year's, which last year was the prior record. So we've had back-to-back years of record snow cover growth across North America, and it seems that this is creating an early arrival to winter weather. So why don't we take a look at what's happening around the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states and elsewhere around the country, because we do have a weather system that is moving through now into the Northeast. And let me bring up this front and center here to the top. So just give me half a second here. And we'll start with, I'm going to start with the surface temperatures tonight, which, unlike last week with the weather system that's affecting the Northeast, unlike last week, we do not have that pool of very cold air, that big high sitting up in New England. I mean, it's certainly cold enough when you look at these temperatures this evening in the 20s and upper 20s and low 30s. But you got to remember, when that cold high was up there, we had temperatures up in the teens to low 20s. So that was a good solid cold air source. We had the high sitting to our northeast, the cold air draining down, and we had this battle going on in trying to get that warmer air to come in from off the ocean. But the high held on for a couple of extra hours, which made all the difference. Then, of course, you head down south into Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, Virginia. You're looking at temperatures in the upper 40s to mid 50s, and then you get into the 60s as you start to move into southern Georgia and Florida, and then, of course, central and south Florida doing its usual middle and upper 70s. Going up through the middle of the country, you start to get into that cold air again, on up through the middle Mississippi Valley, with temperatures this evening in the low to mid 30s, and then you've got 20s on up through Iowa into Minnesota, and then let's bring in the teens and the single digits, and even some below zero readings this evening showing up now in parts of the Dakotas and in parts of Minnesota. So no doubt we have very cold air here at the moment, and it is creating at least enough there's enough cold air so that this wave of low pressure that we're looking at in northern West Virginia, and you see the stalled frontal boundary that lies across southern Pennsylvania to just south of New York City to about Cape Cod. So north and west of there is where the quote-unquote colder air is. The real cold air is when you go north and west of the low that's up in northern Lake Huron, in northern Michigan. This is the next high coming down. So this is where let's call it the real cold air. You've got cold air, and then you've got real cold air. And it's on the northern fringe of the precipitation boundary line, of this frontal boundary. So it's on the northern fringe of the precipitation that we are seeing some snow and the resulting winter weather advisories that go along with it. Here's the radar this evening. We'll give it a little bit of a fresher look here. And you can see some rain on the southern end of this, some snow on the northern end of this, moving across northern Pennsylvania into southern New York State, and then heading east through the middle Hudson Valley. We do have a few winter weather advisories up tonight, and then that extends over into parts of Massachusetts. Further south, you've got some rain showers well off the Carolinas. You do have some rain shower and some thunderstorm activity scattered around parts of Louisiana and the Mississippi Gulf Coast. A little snow at least showing up aloft in through central Illinois. And then out in the west, it still remains very, very quiet. Pretty much the entire western half of the U.S., everybody pretty much west of the Mississippi, not seeing any precip. Either it's too cold and dry where the cold air is, or it's warm and dry in the west because of the big upper high that is built up in the western part of the United States. So let's look first off. Let's look forward with what's happening tonight. I'm going to skip this map for the moment, and we'll put up the hazards that we have tonight throughout much of the Northeast, and we'll to set the time correctly. So here are your winter weather advisories that are up. This is for tomorrow morning, so let's just extend this a little bit. The advisories that are up at the moment that will last overnight into 6 a.m., run from northeastern-most Pennsylvania up in through the Catskills, up in further north from there to Binghamton, for example. Northeast, Albany is in it. The middle and upper Hudson Valley. You get into the Berkshires, southern Vermont, the southern half of New Hampshire, and then the coastal counties in Maine, Portland, Augusta. You'll see you're accumulating snows out of this on the order of several inches. And when we'll look at the Weather Service's snow forecast amounts. And by the way, these maps are always, you go to the Weather Service websites, you can certainly pull these maps up on your anytime. So we'll show you this total snowfall here going through Thursday. Actually, we'll take it to the end of Thanksgiving Day, so we'll be able to show other areas. So the numbers are populating. So this looks like basically a 1 to 3, 2 to 4 inch snowfall. You see some 5s pop up there from the Weather Service forecast, probably reflecting some elevation. Not sure why. Well, I'm not sure why they're doing this. Actually, I do know why. I take that back. What you're seeing over Cape Cod, where it's showing 1 inch snowfalls here, this is actually going to be from ocean effect snow that will probably occur there Wednesday night into Thursday as that Arctic air comes in. And then I would probably argue that it's depending on the trajectory of the wind, with Long Island Sound being still pretty warm and that really cold Arctic air moving over it, wouldn't be a shock at all to see some Long Island Sound effect snow showers coming in Thursday morning with that cold air. And I've seen that happen often enough, certainly. We're looking at 1 to 3, 2 to 4 across upstate New York. There will be some lake effect snows of size on the east shores of Lake Ontario, the eastern shore and the southeastern shore of Lake Ontario, and also to the south and west of Buffalo. There's likely to be some locally higher amounts. Getting some action in and around the Great Lakes, which makes total sense, of course, especially in the upper peninsula of Michigan. But when we get it a bit wider here, that looks like that might be the only area of interest. You are going to see some snow start to pop up in the Rockies as these weather systems start moving into the west later in the week, and you see this narrow band. They have winter storm watches up, by the way, for parts of eastern California with the mountains there. So I was looking at some of the forecasts calling for 8 to 16 inches in some. 10 to 16 inches in just one time frame. And in fact, when we get really tight here, you see the darker purples that are showing up, showing some big snow. So this is at least an indicator that you are getting some weather coming in to the Pacific Northwest. Now, with respect to the cold that's coming, we'll stay wide on this to cover all of the Northeast, and I'll move it around so we can pick up the Mid-Atlantic. So why don't we look at the minimum temperatures here, the low temperatures, starting with Wednesday morning, because you're going to start to see cold air move in to parts of the Northeast on Wednesday, but more as you go further north. So you're looking at teens and 20s and low 30s going down into Virginia and even into North Carolina. As far as the areas from, say, northern Virginia northward during the day on Wednesday, you're going to see temperatures probably go absolutely nowhere as far as the highs, because you are going to see this Arctic front come in on Wednesday, and that's going to hold the temperatures back. So you might see these numbers might be left over. It's hard to kind of tell whether maybe they're not quite left over from Tuesday night. So it's possible that we could see temperatures reach up to about 40 or so before the Arctic boundary moves on through. But you start to go into the Hudson Valley and further north, the temperatures really don't move very much. And then we get the bottom to fall out when we move into Thursday morning. So we'll put up the minimum temperatures now for Thanksgiving morning. And this is going to be cold. You're looking at temperatures single digits to down to zero in upstate New York. Single digits across Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, even into western Mass and down into the Catskills and northeastern Pennsylvania. Teens to near 20 into southeastern PA, and then you start to get into the middle 20s and upper 20s as you go to the south of there into Virginia and North Carolina. The southern extent of this cold air is not going to go that far south. I mean, the truly very cold air here is not going to make it that far south because of the fact that the trough doesn't extend all the way down the east coast. It's really bringing the bulk of its shot over the northeast. So there are your minimum temperatures for Thursday, and we'll switch to the maximum temperatures for Thursday. And you'll notice from off the lows, you really don't climb very much. These might actually be even a tad too high. We could be, middle 20s, I think may just about do it for a lot of areas across Pennsylvania and the warmer urban centers. 31 for Philadelphia and 28 for New York City, Central Park. This also might be, I wonder if this might be left over from midnight, that it might be more along the lines of 24 or 5. So I'm thinking low to mid 20s for daytime highs during the day on Thursday. The other issue is you got the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade Thursday morning, and it is going to be, with the wind, brutal. The wind is going to be gusting to over 30 miles an hour at times, and if you want a sense of what it's going to feel like, well, take a look. This is actually 7 p.m., so I want to make it feel worse because by that time the wind will have dropped off. So let's see where we go. This is 1 p.m. And this is 8 a.m., 10 a.m. I guess 10 a.m. is as good as any, but I want to go back one, so at least you'll get the lows of the day. So, I mean, when you add in the wind, you're looking at wind chills that are going to be in the single digits to below zero across northern New Jersey, northeastern PA, and on up the Hudson Valley, -5 at Albany. We've got 6 for New York City Central Park, 3 for Islip, 9 for Trenton, 16 with the wind at Philadelphia. And, you know, they have a threshold, I believe it's at 30 miles an hour or 35 miles an hour where they can't send up the balloons because it would be too dangerous. And there will be some gusts into the 30s. If you're going to be out there standing, I truly, truly hope you dress for this, because this is really going to be very, very hard to take. And then we're not done. Before we even get to that, let me widen now so you can see what I was saying with respect to the cold air. Yeah, it does get down into the 30s all the way into the Florida Panhandle, but the concentrated cold air is sitting in the northeastern part of the U.S. And the high temperatures, we'll show you the extent of the high temperatures here, at least for the daytime highs. You are talking about 50s and low 60s down, 50s in the Carolinas, 60s down into southern Georgia and into northern Florida. That's cool for them, but it isn't really especially cold. It's actually, you know, the Northeast again is going to take the prize on Thanksgiving Day for having the coldest weather, even up in the north. At least, you know, the temperatures you're seeing for highs on, this is Wednesday, by the way. Let me go to Thursday. This thing keeps switching back and forth on me. So here's Thursday's highs. So again, even on Thursday, you can see 50s from the Carolinas and 60s down into Florida. The temperatures actually moderate across the northern plains and in the western lakes into the upper 30s and low 40s. So it's the Northeast down into the northern mid-Atlantic states that really take the brunt of this cold shot. And back to Friday morning. For the lows, it's going to be another very cold night in the Northeast. Tighten up here a bit so we can see some of the numbers. So you're looking at single digits and low to mid-teens just about everywhere. 15 for Trenton, 19 for Philadelphia, 22 for Baltimore, Washington 24, Boston 14, 8 at Worcester, 7 at Springfield, in Albany 4. You've got some -1s as you go up through further north up into the Adirondacks. You're looking at temperatures running at 0 to 5 below at the very least. So that is the worst of it. And then after this, the weather starts to improve. So why don't we jump to the surface map? I think I'll go to the full U.S. wide shot here. TropicalTidbits.com, your go-to source for maps, and also it's back to a full working order, which is good. And let's hang on one second here. I want to take the full U.S. so we can watch what's going on in the West. All right, so we've got our weather system that's moving through the Northeast tonight. So it doesn't really do very much. It stays pretty weak. Strengthens a little bit once it goes east of Cape Cod and then over to Nova Scotia. Looks like the track is a bit further north and west, so much of Nova Scotia will get rain out of this before it changes to snow as it goes by. The rest of the country, Tuesday, looks pretty quiet. And here's that Arctic front moving into the Northeast and dropping southward. And again, the core of that cold shot really drops down into New England and down into the northeastern parts of Virginia. The high drops into Pennsylvania. You start to see weather coming into the west on Wednesday with rain and snow into California, into the Northwest and the Rockies. So that's our energy for the weekend. The high this time around goes out to our south and east. So it's sitting right overhead during Friday. The temperatures should start to moderate. And then it moves southeast of Cape Cod and east of New Jersey and out. So this will bring warmer air up in a relative hurry, so that when this first round of energy comes out of the plains and arrives for Saturday night into Sunday, it will be in the form of rain. There might be some leftover cold air that gets trapped in the mountains of West Virginia and western North Carolina at the start, that you could see a little bit of sleet or freezing rain before it quickly goes over to rain. This doesn't look to be too big a deal here in terms of the strength of this system. There's low pressure is probably going to develop on the southern end. There's a frontal boundary here. It's more like a warm front than anything else. And there's a frontal wave that develops on there that moves out off the Atlantic seaboard. So I'm not expecting too much in the way of rain here Saturday night into Sunday morning. The second round, and that is with the energy coming in from the west, comes into play. And this is where the blocking starts to take hold. If you look up in the north to the northeast in northeast of Maine, there's actually a big high that's beginning to build there, and it's not moving, okay? So that is going to force this low to try and redevelop to the southeast, which eventually it does. You'll see that Great Lakes low disappears, and the secondary low takes over while this high presses in rather tight. I mean, that's a pretty tight pressure gradient that develops. There's no real cold air at this point. You do have cold air coming back into the plains and in the western lakes, which makes sense, but there won't be any cold air left in the east for this, and this is for Monday. So while you do have low pressure that develops there southeast of the New Jersey coast, it's kind of odd looking. It's got this sort of northwest southeast tilt to it. That is basically the tilt of the upper trough the way it is, and it's very sharp. Produces an area of heavy rains during the day on Monday if it lines up this way, and it leaves it there into early Tuesday morning. Now, at some point when that coastal low completely takes over, you see this changeover to snow that occurs in upstate New York and eventually up into Vermont and New Hampshire. Now, watch this surface low. I'm just going to show you the impact of the block. Watch this surface low because this is Monday morning, okay? Monday evening, Tuesday morning. It barely moves, okay? Tuesday evening, it kind of inches up toward Cape Cod. That's Tuesday evening. Wednesday morning, it's in the Gulf of Maine, a fairly deep wrapped up low. I'm wondering whether if this winds up verifying that this could be a fairly sizable snowfall for northern New England with this. We'll see. I want to see some more model runs, of course. And it just sits there all day Wednesday into Wednesday night and Thursday before it actually drops southeastward. This is the impact of the block that's out to the north. And as we go through next week, we're going to see another system. And remember our storm time frames, the last days of the month of November and around December 4th, 5th. Well, here's November 30th, December 1st. You've got another system coming up and lifting out. Again, most of the cold air is still up to the north in Canada, and you still have this big high. This is the block. The block rebuilds the high, so you could get another wind and rain event here if this is right, and that moves out to the northeast. Now, I will caution you, because of the blocking scenario, I'm going to be really suspicious of the positioning of this. And the fact that it's trying to take the surface low to the northeast into the block, because if that block is holding, what will wind up happening is that this energy will be forced to redevelop further south into the east if the high is more important. This is not going to be something that we're going to resolve right now, but this is something we'll need to look for when we go through the weather maps over the next 5 to 7 days. How is the block impacting all of this down the road? We could wind up with a situation where you'll have a couple of nor'easters that are mostly, rain and wind events. On the other hand, there's also the chance that depending on how the block sets up, cold air may eventually get involved. That's tough to, again, that's not something that you can say now for something that you're talking about 11 and 15 days from now. But watch the upper high, okay? You start to see it here. It's near Iceland. It's at the top center of the map. It kind of flexes a bit. Here's our cold shot of air comes thin through the northeast. Now, that's going to pull out a little bit of a ridge builds, which allows us to moderate Friday and Saturday. And now here comes that upper high as it pushes its way into northeastern Canada and just strengthens like crazy. See, when that happens, all this energy gets shoved to the south and east, down from Canada into the northern lakes, and you see it there. This is really kind of a, almost a textbook blocking setup in the upper atmosphere. You can see how the jet stream is displaced way to the south. You can also see the two big upper highs, the one in northeastern Canada and also the one in western Canada. And this is going to bring us now to the teleconnections for today, which were very interesting in my view. Please don't tell me that this site is down again. I tried this morning, and I went to pull it up because I accidentally erased it, and the site wound up being down. Tell me it's down again. I have such great luck. Unreal. They took it down again. It's unbelievable. Oh, here we go. Glory, hallelujah. All right, so here are your teleconnections. Very interesting on the teleconnections because you have look at the PN. Now the Pacific North America Index is really forecast to go off the wall positive by the 29th of November, and it's each of the last 4 runs here, 3 or 4 runs, that PNA has been stronger later in the period. The NAO, same thing, goes deeply negative this coming weekend. And while it does go back to the neutral line by December 4th, it takes longer and longer to get there. We had it going back to the neutral line yesterday around November 30th, December 1st. So each day it's pushing it back, pushing it back, pushing it back. The East Pacific Oscillation remains a bit of a wild card. It's kind of straddling the neutral zone, which doesn't make it overly cold in the east, but it doesn't make it overly warm either. So, a slight change in the EPO might change the overall outcome of what we might be dealing in the long range. So, I think the takeaway at the end of the day is the storm signals that the teleconnections and the models were giving remain very much on the table. The blocking pattern is going to happen. We are going to have teleconnection indices that point to potential East Coast storminess around the 29th, 30th of November, and also around the 4th and 5th of December. I think those two time frames still look pretty good. And if you are looking for an answer to that long-range question now, you just simply are not going to get it because it's just not going to happen, okay? But nonetheless, really, when you think about the fact that the kind of weather that we're dealing with here, as we are as we're moving through this month of November, the snowstorm. Now we've got the record cold. Of course, and then we're going to have a stormy period at the end of the month and in the beginning of December. How those storms evolve remain to be seen, but it is going to be very, very interesting for us to watch for sure. I'm going to just put up real quick, for those of you who are new to the channel, welcome to my YouTube channel. Please feel free to participate in the chat. Feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is absolutely free. I just want to let you know that we do have, I do have an app, a free app. If you have Android, if you have an Android mobile device, you can download that on Google Play, and it covers the areas from northern New Jersey, New York City, Long Island, the lower Hudson Valley, and coastal Connecticut. So if you are watching from within that zone and you've got an Android mobile device, this app works for you, so it's up there. I got the Google Play link up for you as well. And if you see that little Patreon emblem that's up there, that is another platform that I have with weather, exclusive posts, private live streams for Patreon members, and much more. So if you would like to join that, that's a subscription site, but it's just $2 a month, or the price of a cup of coffee. And here is the link to my Patreon platform. I think if you talk to some of the folks that are on here, they'll tell you that they are really happy with what I've been doing with that, and I will be doing more. Phil can't wait to climb Mount Washington again. Yeah, but maybe try and wait for the cold pattern to pull out, because this is going to be crazy cold up there in Mount Washington. You're having fencing installed. The rain's going to be done, Phil, tomorrow morning, I think, before daybreak. The daytime tomorrow will be dry, so you'll be okay to get the snow. I mean, you'll be able to get your fence in. I was reading Dio Nankumar's post. What happened to the other snowstorm last week? Got the forecast wrong, coding to an inch at 3 to 6, but you try a lot, Joe, to get it corrected. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, this system for tonight wound up being not as deep and further north. And that is, that is what happens sometimes. One of the things you guys on here are more weather savvy, so you understand the fact that you can't use the first forecast for a snow system going out the door. You can't use that as the one that is going to be the one you stick with. You've got to expect that there's going to be some fluidity to all of this. And that works in both directions. The models were more bullish going into this weekend. It looked to be kind of on the flat side overall with the way the upper trough was, so it was kind of an argument against it. It was basically the opposite of what happened on Thursday in that respect. And, some forecasters are jumping on it reflexively because they didn't, you got burned on the first one, so you figure you better not get burned on the second one. But it just wasn't, the same thing. So I will just say, when it comes to, first impressions seem to mean everything with weather. The first forecast out of the gate seems to be the one that everybody just hangs on to. And, if you try to adjust that, people just, won't accept it. But you've got to come to accept the fact that there's going to be fluidity in every forecast. Nobody cares if, when I say nobody cares, or let me try that again. It's no big challenge to forecast a sunny day under a big upper high that's sitting overhead. That's easy. You're not going to get much adjustment in that forecast if you do it 4 or 5 days ahead of time when it's certain that there's going to be an upper ridge overhead and there are no other complications. That's an easy thing to do. But when it comes to precip, when it comes to storms, when it comes to, you're talking about volatile animals in the atmosphere that are going to change, and they're undergoing change. Either they're strengthening, they're weakening. You've got different air masses at play. Those makes those forecasts a lot tougher. You've got to be more flexible in the process of something that you hear 4 or 5 days out versus something that you hear 3 days out versus something that you hear inside of the 2-day time frame. I see a number of our regulars are on here, which is always good. Mr. Trabacchino, you're going to get a little bit of snow here out of this. No snow for Chris Alley on Long Island. Although I will say, Chris, that given the pattern we're in, don't be shocked if we wind up with a snowfall in the first half of the month of December. Okay, it doesn't happen often, but being that we had one already, and being that the pattern that we are seeing going forward is going to be blocky in nature, don't be too shocked. The Supreme Gamer would like me to look at Saskatchewan. Okay. All right, so hang on. Saskatchewan, here we come. And here we go. Well, why don't we start with some current temperatures up there, because it is cold. And hang on one second here. Whoops. Sorry about that, folks. But let me just get a little. There we go. So you're looking at temperatures right now that really aren't all that cold in Saskatchewan. Prince Albert at 18. North Battleford is at 27. The colder air is further east of Lake Winnipeg because of the fact that it's dropping into the northeast. Regina's 27. See what other temperatures we can come up with. Doesn't always populate with all the numbers the way they should in Canada. So it doesn't look like there's a whole lot there. And probably see more on the surface map here. You can see some of the numbers as far as the temperatures are concerned in Saskatchewan, with readings in the teens. You start to get into some single digits as you go further to the north, and even some numbers below zero. But you do have this warm front here to the southwest, and when you go south and west of there into the western provinces, it's pretty warm there in the middle to upper 40s. And then up into British Columbia, you're looking at temperatures that are in the 30s. I forgot the province that's next to Saskatchewan. Hang on a second. I'll take a look at the map. The map will help me cheat a little bit. Okay, where is it? Alberta. Sorry, of course. I had a bit of a brain fade there for a moment. So you can see the Canadian temperatures as we go to the east. Let me see if I can get this to populate a bit more. Hang on. It may or may not put in some extra temperatures here, but we go into Quebec. This is where our source cold region is going to be coming from James Bay eastward. That cold air is not there yet, but there you see your temperatures are down in the single digits and teens. There's a -6 that shows up. I'm not sure what that is in Quebec province. Okay, I'm going to take a guess. Chapas or Chapa and Shibagamu. Boy. And I thought the Long Island people have tough time with the Long Island town names like Hauppauge and Aquebogue. Those are tough. So if anybody knows what the correct pronunciation here is, please share, because I have no idea. I would not be surprised, Iron Mind, with regards to snow showers for Long Island. Having looked at with this Arctic air coming down, the warm water, if you get that north wind over the sound, there probably will be some sound effect snow showers here on Wednesday. It would not shock me at all to see that. By the way, I don't know why, but it seems like the chat for some reason has cut off. So I'm not sure what's happening with respect to that. But so if I'm not addressing, I'm going to try and refresh this. And hopefully I won't lose you, because I do have a little bit of time here so we can carry the live stream on a bit further. So give me 1 second. Let me see what happens if I refresh. And while I'm at it, might as well give myself a little bit of extra lighting. So yes. Okay, I got the chat back. Okay, good. Sorry about that. By the way, there might be some snow showers, Israel. It's a good question. Might be some snow showers for Wednesday with the Arctic front going by. I think they'll be scattered in nature, and you don't get those ocean effect snows because the wind. You don't have the open water to your north, so you need a long trajectory of you need 10 miles of water, let's say, to pick a number, where the wind is blowing over 10 miles of water, and the distance from Sandy Hook to Staten Island is not 10 miles. You just don't have it there. Sometimes you'll get ocean effect with a northeast wind, but you've got to have a really, really cold Arctic air mass coming down, and your ocean water temperatures are probably a little bit too warm for that, but it does occasionally happen along the Jersey Shore. Ashante Stevens, by my prediction now, how bad or good things going to be between Thanksgiving and December? I think we've got, I think there's the potential for 3 events in that time span. One over the weekend and into the early part of next week. And then you're going to have the 2 events that will be coming out of the strong blocking pattern, possibly around November 30th, December 1st, and then maybe around, say, December 4th and December 5th. I think those are the target dates, and they still are. We're right on course for those things. Again, the specifics, long way to go as far as the specifics are concerned with respect to what comes out of the blocking pattern. So we're going to have a solid forecast challenge ahead of us. How unusual, Scott Burler, how unusual the snow with Thanksgiving. The average high, that's a good point. I mean, the average high in New York City, by the way, is still above 50. So you're talking about temperatures that are running 25 degrees below average. We don't see temperatures, the average high in New York City drop below 50 degrees until we get into the first few days of December. And even at the end of December, the average high is still at about 40. So this pattern is really out of whack. Robert Hurley, really what you need is a little bit of lift in the atmosphere, a good solid wind over a relatively large body of water, and very, very cold air. And you wind up with just a little bit of vertical motion. This is where you get some snow showers. And when it happens over the Great Lakes, you're talking about a relatively big body of water. So you've got all this bitter cold air over the relatively warmer waters. Again, a little bit of lift. That's one of the things about being up in the Great Lakes for a forecaster. All you really got to do is, in the wintertime, is cold air advection and the wind direction, because the wind direction is everything. A 270 wind or a west wind causes lake effect snows in one place and not in another. And then a 310 wind causes maybe the reverse to happen. The areas that get it with a 270 wind don't get it with the 310 wind. It's all about the trajectory over the water. Do HV 123, Hudson Valley 123. Do you see it's radiational cooling causing temperatures to drop even more than what is forecasted? I think that could happen Thursday night into Friday morning in the Hudson Valley and maybe even in the parts of Long Island, if the winds drop off to dead calm, which they might do, but they might not do until very late at night. So I don't know how much time you're going to have with a calm wind. Peter Bicker, how strong? I think there could be gusts, 30, 35 miles an hour. Maybe the odd gust a little bit higher than that. I think there might be some issues with the Macy's Day Parade if those winds verify. You are correct, Jason Schaefer. The city of Buffalo does get rooked in lake effect events. They do well. I think it's a west-southwest wind, because that comes straight across Lake Erie the long way, and that's when Buffalo gets hit really, really hard. But you don't often get a west-southwest wind with cold, with cold advection. It does happen, but you don't often get it. If you really want to see a great example of it, though, you want to look at back. I think when was it was it 13? The epic lake effect snow event. It was either in 2013 or December of 2013 or December of 2014. I forget which. But take a look at those. Just Google epic Buffalo snow lake effect snow event. Take a look at those. Ideal conditions, and also if you look at the winter of if you look at January of 1977, that was nonstop lake effect for a month in Western New York, and particularly in Buffalo. I think that year still holds the record for snow for the whole season at just shy of 200 inches. Redfield up in northern New York, Scott Briller. So that's Pulaski, Tug Hill, those areas up there, Watertown. So they're going to get the lake effect out of this with the wind coming in, right off of Lake Ontario. For Wednesday. And Kenny Salerno, I agree with you. It is too early for this. But I'm getting a taste of it just by sitting here in this studio I'm working out of, because the temperature here in the studio is 59. And just trying to run through any of the other chat comments that I missed. Again, I apologize, because I saw that the chat did go out briefly and I needed to refresh the page. Michael Azara, do I think the pattern could get like the insanity we had during January and February of '78? You know what? I can't. That's that question is so you can't really answer it. You just can't. I really don't look at, when I look at weather maps, and while I do see similarities to certain things, you also see differences, and I don't look at a weather map and say, and then pick the extreme outcome in history and expect it to come out as a repeat performance. I can never bring myself to look at weather in that way. I like to look Thank you, Anthony. Or November of 14 for Buffalo's epic snow event. I really kind of like to look at each case individually, and while I do understand that weather history and analogs are important, I don't fall back on a given season and say, oh, it looks just like this, because you know what? It never really exactly looks just like this, and if you're forecasting straight that way off of analogs, you're going to find yourself getting burned over and over again because you're going to miss what's happening, which is right in front of you. Why are they keeping me that cold? I don't know. They're having trouble turning the heat on. I'm not sure why, but it takes a while. But eventually, it does warm up in here. At least it keeps me fresh and young, which is good. All right, folks, it's 8:15 Eastern time, so we're going to leave you here at this stage of the game. Thanks again for being here. Once again, for those of you who would like, consider joining my weather platform on Patreon. It's just $2 a month, and you'll get more weather than you know what to do with, including live streams just for Patreon members, which we did today at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and we'll probably do one sometime tomorrow morning. Thanks, Robin J., for the kind words. You have a happy Thanksgiving as well to you and your family. And let me just say that now, in case some of you are going to be off the board for the next couple of days. Happy Thanksgiving to you and to your family. And please, travel safely wherever you go, even though the weather is not going to be especially troublesome on the big travel day. Just take your time. There's a lot of nuts on the road. I discover that every night on my drive. Michael Zimmerman, Thanksgiving will be the coldest since 22, so that's the most recent very cold Thanksgiving. But 1930 was the coldest, and the temperatures may rival it. So it will be colder than 2002, but perhaps just shy of the 1930. So I'm thinking it's going to be somewhere in the top 3 coldest Thanksgiving. There isn't a huge difference, by the way, between the 2002 and the 1930. It's a handful of degrees. So it's basically about the stats and the numbers. We're not talking about, a wide range here. Okay, so here's the Google Play link for those of you who have Android devices and would like to download my app for northern New Jersey, New York City, Long Island, Connecticut, and the Hudson Valley, lower Hudson Valley. I cover that area, and that app is absolutely free. There will be an iPhone version of that. It has been submitted to Google. We're hoping to hear from Google any day now. So as soon as I know it's on iTunes, the link will be going out, and I will let you know. Thank you, and to you too, Michael Zimmerman, and to everybody here. Again, a happy Thanksgiving. There's no Joe and Joe show tonight because Mr. Rayo is off, but I'll tell you what, I probably can talk him into doing my YouTube tomorrow night. So I'll probably try. I'll attempt to get him on for YouTube tomorrow evening at our regular 7:30 live stream. Patreon Patriots, you'll get your live stream tomorrow sometime in the morning. Just look for the post that tells you the link and the time that the live stream will be conducted. Have a great evening, everybody. Be well, and we'll see you